All right, we're here with NextGen. Nate, thanks for joining us. We got a big investigation, 1.3 million, I think, Ford transmissions that are under investigation. We're going to talk about that. And then at the end of this video, Nate's going to give you a little tour of the shop because we had some people in the comments claiming that Nate doesn't have an actual shop. So he's going to give you a little tour at the end. So I'll read parts of this NHTSA investigation, and then Nate's going to kind of give his reaction based on his experience on the 6R80. In this investigation, they say 43% of consumers reported experiencing at least one wheel lockup event during which the rear tires locked, screeched, or skidded during the transmission downshift. They found that 114 out of 329 consumers reported having their vehicle's molded lead frame or valve body assembly replaced. So 80 they confirmed through submitted repair invoices. So they're essentially saying that the people that are having these rear lockup events actually have had replacements in the past. What do you think about that?
Anyone who has followed me in this journey to perpetuate repairability to the public and to educate people on transmissions knows that I am on the record many times in the past saying these OEMs are never going to fix these transmissions. So a lot of people say, well, I heard there's an update for the transmission in my vehicle. Is that transmission fixed? Is that one reliable? I'm going to enter into evidence the 6R80. This transmission is now 15 years in production. And they're now probing 1.3 million of them. They don't even make this thing anymore. You can only get remands. This transmission is out of production, and still they can't figure out how to make it work. And somehow the aftermarket has figured it out. I invented the only pulse dampener delete kit for these. And I find it shocking that, as usual, a relatively small engineering firm was able to solve so many of these problems. And Ford, with all of their resources, cannot figure this out. I think it's insane. And I think what's also insane is that the numbers you're telling me sound like, a third to half of people experienced an issue like this. How can a third to half of these vehicles on the road have a problem like this with just one component? When you quantify all of the other parts of the vehicle, how many of these things make it out of warranty without a major failure? I mean, is it zero? I mean, it's really just embarrassing. So the worst part for me, as somebody who designs transmission parts for a living, is that this is the most avoidable stuff known to man. If you had to replace a third of valve bodies under warranty, I mean, that's literally nuts. If we had to replace a third of our warranty valve bodies under warranty, a third, I mean, we wouldn't even be able to keep the lights on. It just tells you how cheap they're making these things for. It's actually insane, and it's actually embarrassing. And I don't know how many times I need to say, stop buying this. This is why they sell vehicles like this. It's because people buy them. You can't keep financing this behavior. It's just not going to stop.
All right, I got to read one more statement here. Ford has identified that the defect in the recalled vehicle population involved a lead frame supplier production issue, resulting in signal loss from the output shaft speed sensor, the OSS sensor. Ford has identified that the alleged defect in the subject vehicle population involved degradation of electrical connections within the lead frame due to thermal cycling and vibration over extended time in service, resulting in the signal loss from the transmission range sensor. What's your thoughts on that?
So they're blaming it on a third-party component when in reality the problem is their software. So let me tell everybody where this transmission came from. Ford is lying, in my opinion, and this is why I believe that. The 6R series transmission is a product of them licensing a lot of intellectual property from ZF. ZF at the time was making the HP6 or the 6HP series transmissions, and they were common in things like Volkswagens and BMWs and Land Rovers and all those cars you don't want to buy. They were common in those, Bentley, etc. And so this 6-speed transmission was relatively reliable. It's very expensive to fix, but it's pretty reliable. And Ford needed a transmission at the time, and they can't be trusted to make a transmission, apparently. And so they went to ZF and they licensed the intellectual property around the ZF6 HP series transmission. What they did with it is they needed to change the bell housing to be compatible with their current powertrains, and they wanted to change the hydraulics and the control system for reasons that I don't totally understand, but I can take a wild guess that it was to make them cheaper. That's why Ford does almost everything. So in doing so, they redesigned these components to simply be easier to manufacture, more affordable to manufacture. And they look a lot like the 6R140 inside, the elder, bigger brother in this transmission family. It's the one you'd find in like diesels or like an F350 gas, right? And so when they came out with this variation, this Frankenstein version of the ZF6 HP transmission, obviously you're going to have some problems associated with your design change because what ZF was doing did work. It might have been expensive, but it worked. And so when they came up with all these changes, they debuted them in 2011. And in 2011, they started to have problems. Well, come 2015, December of 2014, actually, they released the second generation of this transmission where all the hydraulics are totally redesigned. So they had two versions of this transmission. They had one for the auto start stop system and one that doesn't have the auto start stop system. And now just bear with me, this is all relevant. The auto start stop system requires what's called nominal line pressure. Nominal line pressure is the pressure necessary to keep the clutches engaged when crank speed drops to zero, and so pump speed at the transmission also drops to zero. The crankshaft mates to the flex plate, which mates to the cover of a torque converter, which is a welded assembly that has an impeller hub in the back, the neck on the torque converter, that splines into a pump that accumulates pressure. And so when your crank speed drops to zero, when you're using the start-stop system, your line pressure would usually drop to zero. So the start-stop 6R80s were equipped with an auxiliary motor that maintains what's called nominal line pressure. And this keeps those clutches engaged and held even at crank speed being zero. The intent of this design is to prevent a chatter during takeoff when the engine starts up again and slippage of the clutches. It's a reliability thing. The transmission would probably function without it, but it would fail prematurely. So they redesigned in 2014, late 2014, and debuting in 2015 model year vehicles, this second version of the 6R80. All of these problems did not happen in the ZF6 HP26, the original intellectual property. They didn't have these issues. So when Ford redesigned it is when these issues happen. Now, in addition to that, they're going to blame this issue on the output speed sensor signal and the wiring and things like that. They can do that all they want. But here's the fact. You should not be allowed to command a 6-1 downshift. How many lines of software would it take to teach that computer to not allow a 6-1 downshift at any speed above 15 or 20 miles an hour? Why is that allowed? It's not hard to teach a computer not to allow that. That's a massive safety malpractice. That's what that is. Imagine doing that on a motorcycle. You're going 60 miles an hour. For all the people that ride motorcycles, I don't mean to ramble, but this is crazy. Like I'm trying to put this in words where people understand how easy it is for shit like this to not happen. Imagine you're riding a motorcycle. You don't need to be an engineer to understand this stuff. And you're going 60 miles an hour, you're on your Harley, you're on your Hayabusa, whatever the hell you're into. And at 60 miles an hour, you say, you know what? I'm going to hold the clutch in, I'm going to downshift to first, and I'm going to let go of the clutch. What's going to happen? You're going to go sliding everywhere because the rear wheel's going to lock up. Because the engine can't over rev, so it has to pull rear wheel speed down. And the delta in traction is going to cause the rear wheel to break loose. Well, that's what's going to happen in a truck too. It should not be possible to execute a 6-1 downshift. And this is more malpractice from Ford, where they want to blame a third-party parts supplier instead of saying, hey, we designed a garbage transmission because we didn't want to pay for a pretty good one from ZF. That is what actually happened, in my opinion, okay? They are lying to you, in my opinion. The other thing, this transmission uses pulse dampeners, okay, just like the 8L90. And just like the 8L90, whenever you hear about the flared up shifts and the downshift clunks and the pinchy shifts and the, the revs go up and then it bangs into gear, whenever you hear about symptoms like that, it is the damn pulse dampeners. That's why I invented a kit to remove them. It's the pulse dampeners. That's what causes so much of the drivability issues. We have never seen a 6R80 with more than 50,000 miles where all of the pulse dampeners held perfect vacuum, ever. We've never seen it. If you have over 50,000 miles, there is some amount of wear at the pulse dampeners. And as that oil exits the system, you're going to have shifting issues. That's why we sell a delete kit. I'm not saying this to be a commercial. That's not the point. I'm saying this because this firm, which has one engineer and I guess technically two, because we have a drafter and they don't design transmission parts, but they do schematics and drawings and programming that CNC machine and stuff like that. So maybe you can call it two. Best case, two of us. How is it that we figured this out and Ford couldn't figure this out? Well, I think it's really simple. I think they didn't want to figure it out because I think that the moment this is out of warranty, it's a stream of revenue for them because now they get to sell them through their dealerships for repairs. They get to cuck all of these people into buying them. And now instead of being a liability because they have to fix them under warranty, it becomes an income stream. There is a lot of money in selling unreliable vehicles. And if you don't believe me, Google Land Rover. They're telling all these people that the problem is a wire going to a speed sensor. No, the problem is that your vehicle's BS software allows a 6-1 downshift at any speed. That's the problem. I mean, it's such bad faith dishonesty. And the worst part is they're going to say this to every single automotive journalist that wants to do a story on this. And because those people don't know any better, they're just going to publish it. And so all of these lies that, in my opinion, Ford is telling are just going to get parroted by credible media networks that just don't know any better. And it's so dishonest. Just admit that you designed a transmission that had a lot of problems that you could have easily not had and just tell the truth. Like, why is that so hard? I'm not asking Ford to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. I say this all the time. We've dropped the ball on stuff. We're just people. Like, we're all just people. I don't hold it against somebody to just be a person and to make a mistake now and then. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. When you get in front of the media and you say something that is damn well false, to mislead people that have already been brought through the ringer by the malpractice of this design, well, that's where it goes from stupidity to malice, or ignorance to malice, or neglect to malice, or whatever you want to call it. That's where it becomes bad faith behavior. Stop financing this behavior. I design parts for the 6R. I can tell you right off the bat, there are so many easy ways to make this thing not unreliable. And worst part is the internals of the 6R, as far as like the gears and everything, are actually pretty damn reliable because that's the part they got from ZF.
Yeah.
I'm not saying ZF made a perfect unit because they definitely didn't, but they made a pretty good one. And it just seems like Ford didn't want to pay for it. I want to say that definitively, but obviously I got to protect myself from, getting sued. So in my opinion, I believe personally that they wanted to be cheap, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is what you were referring to. So the previous recalls, they said they would get a situation where they had a 6-to-1 downshift, 6th gear to 1st gear, a money shift in an automatic. This affects the 2015 to 2017 F150s. Previously, they had, I think the 2011 through 2014 has had 4 different recalls on the 6R80. So I think this might be, if they do another recall, I think it's going to be the 5th one. So we'll link all those down in the description. So it seems like what you said, they're just going up from 2011 to 2014. They just keep going up through the years, dealing with it as the problems come in or as they're investigated. They're definitely not proactively fixing anything that they know is bad.
Well, of course they're not. This is why I say NHTSA doesn't even do anything. I've been so vocal about how NHTSA is a giant BS organization. This is why. Like, what are you doing? Ford knew about this problem eons ago. And like only now is NHTSA looking into it. And by the way, the vast majority of the time, when they look into something, they text their friends at these companies and say, hey, can you just send me some paperwork on this so I can get it off the book? Like that's how this stuff goes. Where do you think NHTSA finds a lot of their employees? The automotive industry. So what happens when you're an employee at NHTSA and you're supposed to hold, I don't know, Kia accountable for something, and you worked at Kia? There's going to be a conflict of interest because now you have to regulate your friends. They don't do anything. And the other thing is somehow when these class action lawsuits get brought against these companies, which is the correct way to hold them accountable, they'll do billions of dollars in damage and pay out $100 million in a lawsuit. Well, how is it that you screw $50 billion out of people in terms of repairs and downtime and just all of these liabilities, and a class action lawsuit produces $100 million in a recovery? How can that be possible? Think about it. But I can tell you, if you stole $1,000, you owe somebody at the minimum $1,000. And if you screwed your customers out of $50 billion, it sounds like the opening bid is $50 billion, and it might go up from there. In fact, it will. So how do things like this happen? It's because these companies have gamed the game. That's why they sell this to people. They know they can. They have gamed the game. NHTSA's not going to hold them accountable, and the court system allows them to give you back pennies for every $1,000 they take from you. Why? Because our court system does not deliver proportionate recoveries to how much these people were damaged when it comes to suing these major corporations. This is a massive corruption scheme that lots of industries have, but I can only speak to the automotive industry. This is a massive corruption scheme that just isn't going to stop until people stop financing it. I have been saying the whole time I've been advocating for right to repair, stop buying new. And then you consider the fact that my firm is about designing products that prevent you from needing to repair your transmission later and also empower you to repair it yourself at home. That means that our entire business model is a multi-billion dollar liability in terms of potential market share to other transmission companies. Of course, they don't like me. I'm a financial liability to them. You can't trust anything they say because they get paid to have a problem with me. I want everyone to know how this industry operates. I am going to advocate for repair, and I am going to advocate for elevating automotive literacy in the public at any cost to myself, because these people are corrupt and people need to know how these things work. What does NHTSA do? Like, what exactly do you people do? Because it took you 15 years to realize that the 6R80 sucks. Where is NHTSA on every 10-speed Allison's F shell that was having clunky downshifts, getting beat up and ripped, and so the clutches get physically stuck in the teeth of the shell? Something that's prevented with a valve body upgrade most of the time. Why does NHTSA not care about that? Like, I can name this all day. What about 6R140 snapping intermediate shafts? Like, how many examples do you want me to give? I can think of so much to do immediately where public safety is at risk because of how poorly things are designed. What is NHTSA doing with all the money, and what is NHTSA doing with all these people? We're paying for this. If you pay taxes, you pay for NHTSA. The fact that this took 15 years to just pretend to care, and now they're going to investigate it and probably not do anything, is exemplar of why the government cannot be trusted to keep us safe, an exemplar of why OEMs get away with this behavior. But the reality is, whether you like me or you don't, I'm still going to fight for you. I'm still going to fight for repair. I'm still going to fight for an automotive literacy increase in the public. I'm still going to fight for teaching people more about cars and more about the automotive industry so that they don't get abused by this system. And frankly, I'm going to teach people about all the corruption I've witnessed here since I was literally a teenager. Whether you like me or you don't, I'm still going to fight for you.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. What do you think is going to happen with the 10-speed in the Ford and GM? Do you think it's going to just continue to be kind of the same thing, lagging behind a couple of years in recalls and investigations and just allowing them to sell the new stuff? That's their plan. Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. And I know that because that's what's happened for the past like 30 years. It's never going to change. Here's the issue with the 10 speeds. every time they probe them or they recall or they do a bulletin or whatever have you, somehow the brand new ones that use the same parts that cause the problem, as you've mentioned, aren't in the recall. So they get to keep selling vehicles that they know have these issues. Now, if you ask Ford or GM, they would probably tell you, oh, well, we do stop sales all the time. You do stop sales as a last resort. Don't tell me that you're scared to sell a vehicle with a 10R80 to somebody because you've done it millions of times. Big OEM and big aftermarket are both lying to you, and they're lying in different ways. Big OEM lies with like this. They'll lie and say, instead of telling the truth, which is we write software, they'll lie to you and say, oops, somebody gave us a bad wire and it's grounding out on a frame or something. That's how big OEM lies to you. Okay. Big aftermarket lies to you by spray painting something a different color and telling you it's upgraded, or telling you something is billet when it's not billet, or telling you that something is proprietary when it's not proprietary. This is why you need to ask people for pictures of the parts and upgrades you're paying for and ask them, are those upgrades made at your building or are they made somewhere else? Because I can tell you, right? You want to know some? Our upgrades, they're made right there. That's where they're made. You can come watch. You can book a tour of this factory. Like I would love to show people what the millions of dollars we've spent on this business gets you. I'm happy to show people because I'm telling the truth.
You got a 6R80. What's the best thing they can do with the 6R80 now if they're in this
delete the pulse dampeners and maintain it. That's what you do. Delete the pulse dampeners, change every like 20, 30,000 miles, change the oil. And now if you're going to be somebody who's like, well, Nate, you designed that part, so obviously you're biased. Listen, I am biased. I'm not going to lie to anybody. Watch me, watch how honest I'm going to be. I'm biased. I invented the part. I invented the part because it fixes major problems. It's the most common problem in the 6R80. And I know that because we've studied this. Okay. So yeah, I'm biased, but that doesn't mean I'm wrong. All right. If my bias is an issue, then fine, don't buy anything. But I'm not here to lie to anybody. And so those are the facts. I believe in that. That's why I spent the money on behalf of the company to bring that product to life, is because guys just like yourself or gals like yourself called us and said, I really need this part so many times that we realized if we paid to create one, that people would be buying it. We answer demand. We don't create demand. So I understand that it's difficult to get inside a transmission and people are uncomfortable doing that sometimes. I can tell you right now, this is not super complicated. This is a gasket swap. This transmission was designed with pulse dampeners that wear out and cause problems, and they trigger premature failures. That's what I find so frustrating. They didn't have to put them in the first place, but yet Ford and frankly ZF2 did put them in there. And I asked an engineer at ZF, why do you put these things in there? And you know what the guy told me? And this is a guy who worked on the Powerline 8 project. Well, it's kind of an intellectual property thing. Okay, what does that mean? I have a lot of intellectual property. What does that mean? And it's like, well, it's to comply with like a patent or something. It's to something to do with intellectual property and something to do with patents. Dude, you don't need the parts. They just cause the transmission to fail sooner. You know, and I know that it's BS. I would say delete pulse dampeners, and I would also say change your oil. Just every like 20,000 miles, just do a drain and fill, whatever comes out, replace it, drain and fill, use OE fluid. That will slow down the erosion of the valve bores. Those are the two things you can do to extend the life of this transmission. But the bottom line, and frankly, the vast majority of people will not have issues if they do that. Okay. Like that, truly, outside of like electrical stuff that can happen outside the transmission. That's a separate discussion. But as far as internal hydromechanical faults, the majority of people won't have issues if they do that. And that is why I tell people, do not allow OEMs to just tell you what to spend your money on, because the reality is they're just going to keep selling you transmissions. It's never going to stop. I know people think I'm like a crazy rambling man, but dude, if you knew what I knew, you'd be the same way. They want to sell you more transmissions, so they design them to fail. That is what they're doing. Do you think it hurts Ford's feelings that there's going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people buying remands of these things? And then they get to sell all the sensors and the harnesses, the torque converter parts. They get to sell all the OEM parts, even if you don't go to Ford. If you go to your favorite reman company, they have to get a lot of OEM parts. Do you think Ford is losing sleep about that? Or do you think they're bragging to their shareholders about it? The answer is the second one. And if you don't believe me, listen in on an earnings call. Ford is lying to the public, in my opinion.
Well, thanks, Nate. Appreciate it. Hope everybody enjoys the shop tour this time. Hopefully, hey, they're going to be some happy people. They see your shop now.
I understand there was some conversation about how, I guess, we don't have a shop, or I guess just some crazy stuff. So I'm just going to put it all to bed right now. So we have two warehouses, but this is the bigger one. So let me just walk everybody around it real quick. And if you want to tour this in person, you can call in and you can book a tour, and I'll have somebody walk you through. So I'm just going to put all the fake lies to rest real quick. And then I'm sure someone's going to say it's AI, it's CGI, it's whatever. Hey, that's fine, dude. So, firstly, screw machine. All right, there's the screw machine that some people seem to think doesn't exist. Here's all the stuff for cutting the metal. That way we can get the bars into the screw machine. Here's bars that are going to get cut so they can go into the screw machine that theoretically doesn't exist. Here's the bar feeder that doesn't exist. Here's all the tools and everything for us to make our own parts. That definitely doesn't exist. Here's the screw machine. There you go. Live tooling, 7-axis, sub spindle. Definitely doesn't exist. Tumbler, other tumbler, sonic cleaner. Definitely doesn't exist. Um, Engineering truck. We have a billet valve body for the Powerline 8 coming out soon. You'll be excited. Let's see. Lots of racks, mainly for storing cores. That's a lot of steel bars. Let's see. So that's our little put around car for the company. This is a bunch of stuff we moved in from storage that's getting put away. We're going to be organizing this here soon. This just came in today. There's a CUDA steam tank. There's a Champion air compressor. Let's see. Extra packing materials, extra cores, extra parts we just got from storage, mostly core parts that we're probably just going to eBay as used parts. Let's see. Toyota forklift, it's the most reliable thing that we have in the building. 1977 Lincoln Continental. That's my little put around car. It's the second most reliable thing we have in the building. Here's a bunch of cores. We have more in storage. Also, once again, doesn't exist. Ask the internet. Let's see. What else? Shelving for parts. We're reorganizing all the shelving. We got new shelving, so that's why those things are all getting moved around right now. We got this building about 6 months ago, and we're moving our second warehouse into it. There's the kits. When you buy the kits, we keep them in stock right here. We're pretty low on stock right now, but we're making them as we speak. Well, not right now. The machine is off. It's late at night. Everybody's at home right now, except me, apparently. Skateboard, because people want to skateboard in the warehouse. And when they fall and they get injured, I'm going to tell them you shouldn't have been skateboarding in the warehouse. But that's okay. No one listens to me. It's not like I own the place. This is the engineering office. As you can see, here's where I rip things apart and try to understand them and draw things on them. And, I get a little bonkers. Here's a bunch of plates that we have to test. Here's prototypes. Here's sometimes this is like, stuff that's going to get used in a kit. So we keep like a little of them out here. Here's a bunch of stuff that, frankly, we got to go through. Some of it is engineering parts we're going to throw away, like stuff that didn't pass a test or something like that. This computer cost as much. In fact, this computer costs more than the Lincoln Continental. There's our 3D printer. Totally doesn't exist. We definitely don't have one. Let's see. In fact, is it running right now? No, it's not. So, potato chips, very important. There you go. Bamboo 3D printer. So, in addition to that, here we go. Smoking area. It's late at night. Forgive me. There's the smoking area. And like I said, if somebody thinks any sort of BS that some idiot on the internet says about, us not having a facility or so, look, we've been around for 10 years. If you think something like that, call in, let's book a tour. We'll even get you lunch for free because we're so thrilled that you wanted to come see what we do here. So, but once again, packing area, extra boxes. Let's see. This is where vacuum testing of valves takes place. That's part of the quality control process on these valves. Let's see. Waiting room. That's our little plant that died. We got a free plant moving in here. The thing died. It's because I didn't water it. I suck. Break room. I'm not aware of any hanky panky in there, but I'm sure it's happened. We got a unisex bathroom, and then we got an all gender restroom. Don't ask me what the difference is. All right. And then the best part of all, you ready for this? All right. Boom. So, yeah, it was brought to my attention that some of this stuff was being said, and some people who their first time learning about NextGen was videos like this with me as the chief exec. And I understand that to anybody who's known us for years and years, you're like, well, that's stupid. Who cares? Like, nobody believes that. But for people that are learning about us for the first time, I think it's important that they see that other transmission companies are trying to diminish the credibility of my company because we sell repairability and reliability, and they sell the ability to fix your transmission for you instead of allowing us to give you the power to do it yourself or to prevent it yourself. We're a financial liability to the rest of the transmission industry, and that's the reason that they want to diminish our credibility and nothing else. Don't play into the games and don't trust anyone. Don't trust me. Don't trust anybody else. Do not trust anyone or anything because you never know what someone's intentions are. Independently verify everything. But at the end of the day, I am proud to bat for repairability, reliability, right to repair. I'm proud of all those things. By the way, here's my office that I'm almost never in. And for some reason, people keep putting stuff in the corner. I don't know. Don't ask me. I have a home office. I would much rather be at my home office. All right. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. It was a pleasure to show you guys what me and my team have managed to build here. And every person that buys something here, your product's coming from here. It's not coming from China. It's not coming from India. It's not coming from Malaysia. It's coming from the United States of America. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm going to continue to fight for you guys. And I don't give a shit if people like me or not. I'm going to fight for you.